Hello, welcome along to the Fun Kids Science Weekly. My name's Dan. This is officially the greatest podcast in the history of the universe. This week, you can hear all about the largest snake in the world. Seriously, we're talking about that. I cannot believe that we've not spoken about it so far on the show. Also, we'll talk about some record-breaking storms. And I've got a few of your questions to answer too. This week they're on polar bears, they're about emotions, and also about dogs' eyelashes. First, let's travel a little bit further afield. We're heading into space, across the universe, to the smartest school outside of the solar system. This is Deep Space High.
Deep Space High, space for all.
Jump into your wormhole and travel to Deep Space High, the school in space. But hurry, because lessons are about to begin.
All right, settle down. It's time to have another look at all the different space jobs that there are and where you lot might fit in.
I still haven't got a clue. I just think maybe I should stick to watching space shows on TV.
Well, we'll see. Who else would like to tell us about a hobby they have or a lesson they enjoy? And we can see how you could contribute to space exploration. All right, Z, you put your tentacle up first.
Well, my favourite lesson is art. I love drawing and designing. I like imagining all the planets we haven't yet visited and what new spacecraft might look like, and just being creative, using my imagination.
Excellent. Art and design require imagination, and no one would have gone into space at all without imagining what it might be like.
But drawing spaceships, it's not really the same as travelling in one.
But it's still important. Come on, I'll show you. Computer, simulation of the International Space Station, please. Welcome to the ISS that orbits around 250 miles above Earth. Budge up, Quark. We're trying not to get in the way.
It is a bit crowded, even for a sim.
That's right. Take a look around. See how much equipment there is. It's not just computers and spacesuits. There's all the equipment to make everyday life as comfortable as possible.
Looks like those astronauts are having lunch. Their plates and cutlery look very high-tech.
Every single thing you see up here has been designed by someone, using their imagination to make each thing as efficient as possible in terms of the space they take up, how they fit alongside other things, and crucially, how much they weigh.
Who cares how much things weigh? It's space, and, it's weightless.
Maybe this'll help. Computer, let's have a sim of the launch of SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft.
3, 2, 1, we have liftoff.
Everything has to come here from Earth, and because of gravity, huge amounts of fuel is needed to lift the spacecraft from the ground. The greater the weight of the equipment, the greater the amount of fuel that's needed. Creative design not only helps make spacecraft lighter, they also help make them more aerodynamic.
The G-force is incredible. It's pushing me down into the seat.
Well done, Sam. You just spotted another design feature. G-forces can be uncomfortable. Well, on your bum. And everyone is affected differently, because just like you lot, astronauts come in all shapes and sizes. Over 50 years ago, NASA developed a material that could mould the astronaut's shape and then return to its rest state when not in use. Hence the term memory foam.
I've got that on my bed back on Earth. It's super squishy, but doesn't sag.
And I bet you didn't realise you had a bit of space history in your bedroom. So as you can see, creative people like designers make a real difference to spaceflight and life in space, as well as helping inspire us all. I can't hear myself think. Computer, end simulation. Space exploration isn't just for rocket scientists and astrophysicists. Even though they are important, being creative is a great way to solve problems, wherever they may be.
Well, I'm hopeless at art and design, but I see what you mean.
Stick with it, Sam. Plenty more topics to get stuck into. Next time I'll be asking some more of you about your hobbies and interests. You may be very surprised at how they fit into space exploration. Not as surprised as I'll be if you ever leave the room quietly. Class dismissed.
Deep Space High, space for all. With support from the UK Space Agency. Find out more at funkidslive.com/space.
It is question time on the show, my favourite part of the greatest podcast in the history of the universe. This is where you send over your science questions, you send it to us on the Apple Podcast Store as a review, and then I try and figure out the answer for you. This one is from Zara, who's in Chesterfield, who wants to know why polar bears have clear hair. Well, like most animal skins and animal furs in the world, it's for camouflage. It's for keeping safe. It's so they can camouflage and blend into their environment. Now, they live around ice and snow, which is why they're white. Works pretty well. But actually, what's interesting is their fur is hollow. It's not properly white. It more reflects the snow around them. And even weirder, their skin underneath is dark, which you don't really notice. Not brilliant camouflage, but then again, who's going to try and hunt down a massive polar bear? Thank you for that, Zara. This one is from Pearl, who's in Australia, who says that she hopes that I win next year's Best Podcast Award. If you missed this, we won the award for the best podcast in the universe. Well, I got that sent through recently, actually. I've got it currently in my toilet. I am putting together our entry for next year. Hoping that I can get it off in time with lockdown, actually. But anyway, thank you very much, Pearl. Yeah, she asks, why do we have emotions? Well, most likely it's to help us survive. It's so we can quickly take stock and figure out what's happening in the world, and then we can decide if we should act. If something scares us, we get fearful, don't we? So we need to be wary. We're more cautious. If we're sad, maybe we think about things. We think about things that are happening. Now, there are three parts of the brain that does this, that helps us control our emotions. You've got the amygdala, which deals with fear and how we respond to things. There's also the insula, which deals with disgust. And scientists think maybe that helps us stay away from poisonous foods. And also, there is I'm going to try and say this, it's an incredibly long word with like about 50 Qs, but here we go. There is the periaqueductal grey, and that's the part of your brain that deals with pain. Thank you very much for Pearl. Hope everything is all right down in Australia. And finally, this is from Rafe, who is in Omaha in America, who asks, why are my dog's eyelashes so big? Well, I don't know why your dog's eyelashes are so big, Rafe. Dogs generally have long eyelashes because where they are, sniveling around the floor in the mud, there's quite a lot of dust and particles in the air. They need to protect their eyes from getting dirty. And also, eyelash length is pretty dependent on how long the fur is, which is down to what breed it is. So, Rafe, maybe your dog's eyelashes are so big because of the breed that it is. Thank you very much for the question. If you've got something sciencey that you want answered on the show, you need to leave it as a review for us over on Apple Podcasts. It's the Fun Kids Science Weekly. Now, a favourite guest of the show, Christopher Lloyd, he is back on. He's got a brilliant new book out. It's the Britannica all-new children's encyclopedia. So much to cover with this new book because it really does try and uncover some true secrets that are out there. Christopher, hello.
Hello, Dan. Nice to see you.
Nice to be chatting again. Now, an encyclopedia, by its nature, is a big bit of work to undertake. Where do you start when you're putting this together, when you're trying to cobble together so many bits of information? How do you begin to begin?
Well, that's a brilliant question, isn't it? And of course, people are used to the old idea of an encyclopedia as being something where you go and look information up. And this one we've done in partnership with Britannica, the all-new children's encyclopedia. They haven't actually produced an encyclopedia for children since 1984, would you believe it? And even the adult sort of big 26-volume A to Z Encyclopedia Britannica, they stopped printing that in 2012 because, we live in a different age now, of course, and people look things up online. And so the idea of going to a bookshelf to look something up is kind of not something you would expect from, in the modern world so much. So what does that mean for an encyclopedia? So we've thought really hard about this. And we think there's a very important role to play for encyclopedias in the future. You need to go somewhere where you can trust the information. If you go online, you don't know who's written it. But of course, you can look things up online, but is it written in a way that's suitable for that particular age? And then what other interruptions are there going to be? Is it against social media or an advert, or is it something that pop up there and everywhere? Can you focus your mind on that information? So There's a whole range of reasons why putting an encyclopedia together in print is, we think, a really important thing for young people and parents and grandparents even today. How do you do it, as you've asked, is another huge question. So what we haven't done is we haven't gone to the traditional method of doing an A to Z, because we've called this encyclopedia the Britannica All-New Children's Encyclopedia, What We Know and What We Don't. And that gives a clue as to how we're kind of nudging the idea. The encyclopedia is a guide on a journey of your own curiosity. It's not somewhere where you go to find all the answers, because guess what? A lot of the most amazing questions still nobody knows the answers to. What we know and what we don't. And in fact, down the line, we're planning on a new title, the Britannica Encyclopedia of the Unknown, because the questions that don't have answers are just as interesting, if not more interesting, than the questions that do. So we have populated this encyclopedia with 8 chapters, where you start at the beginning of time in the universe, you go to the planet Earth, matter, life, and then the second 4 chapters are about the arrival of humans, and then ancient history, modern history, and into the present day. So it's designed as a journey through time, through curiosity, when all information connects together, and you can find anything you might be interested in, and it provides you with an introduction, with really visual graphics, with lists of amazing things that have happened, with profiles of experts who are working out things that we don't know, and amazing facts about things that we do know. And together, it's a sort of way of introducing people to the interconnectedness of reality, which is something that in the old days, when you just split things up into A to Z, you never really got a true flavour of.
I'm so happy that that's the way you've formatted the book. I mean, 8 chapters covering billions of years of history, and what you've just said. Yeah. I've been doing this science show now for a few years, and I've always thought that what we don't know is much more exciting than what we do know. So just, if you can, just give us a little hint of some amazing things that we don't know the answers to just yet.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And we call these things known unknowns. So, for example, the first chapter about space, the first spread, I'm looking at it now actually, is about the Big Bang. And it introduces the whole topic. There's a big graphic of how the universe has expanded over billions of years, what happened at the Big Bang, what the evidence is that the universe began with the Big Bang. But there's this section called Known Unknown. Let me just read this paragraph to you. Why is there more matter than antimatter in the universe? The opposite of matter, stuff, is antimatter. When matter and antimatter collide, they are both destroyed, leaving only energy. Scientists think these were created in equal quantities in the Big Bang. So, why didn't antimatter cancel out the matter that made the universe and everything in it? Scientists still don't know the answer. And, that's something that happened, at the beginning of time. And if it had happened, which it should have happened, we wouldn't be here at all. I wouldn't be on this show. I wouldn't be able to publish a book. We wouldn't have a question we didn't know the answer to, because we wouldn't be able to ask the question. And it all goes back to this mystery as to why there's more matter, which then clumps together into stars and galaxies and planets and books and everything else. I mean, what could be a more fundamental thing that we just don't know the answer to than that?
That's almost the most amazing known unknown, isn't it? There's this thing that doesn't exist but does exist. Oh, I mean, I tell you, we could go for hours on this. Now listen, I think when you publish an encyclopedia, or when I'm presented with an encyclopedia now, I might be thinking, well, kind of, what's the point? I've got the internet at my fingertips. Why do you think encyclopedias are still so amazing for gathering facts, gathering information in a better way than the internet could be?
Oh, there's a whole lot of reasons. I mean, one is printed books are a different experience to looking on a screen. Partly because you can pick them up, because you can leaf through them. You have the serendipity that you get from reading a newspaper as opposed to a news feed. Things you were looking for that just leap out of the page, that grab your attention and take you on a new journey. And they make a connection in your brain, which you didn't expect to connect. And that's the way our brains thrive, actually. They thrive on the unexpected connection. And when that happens, your brain releases a little bit of joy, a bit of dopamine, a little rush, and you go, wow, I never knew that. Or sometimes you make a connection and you laugh, And that's how jokes are made. You know, they're word plays, they're puns, they're unexpected connections. And it's difficult online if you decide you're looking for something. It's less likely you're going to get an unexpected connection because you're already decided what you're looking for. And it's true also on an A to Z format of an encyclopedia. I'm going to look for, see what a giraffe is or where they live. You go to G and you look up giraffe. You might see something before or after the giraffe entry, but it will definitely have to begin with a G. In this case, you can just dip in and out of this book and go on an adventure, a bit like the old Mr. Ben TV show that I used to love when I was small. He'd go in the dressing room and he'd dress up as a sort of, ancient medieval warrior, and he'd go out of the other door and suddenly he was in another world. And then he would come back again and have another adventure. And I think of this encyclopedia a bit like that. I think it's a natural way for the brain to explore that curiosity we're born with in an environment that's safe, that's really beautifully illustrated and designed, and accessible, And I think for all those reasons, I would encourage not just children, but parents, grandparents, teachers, to just take a little bit of time to take a book like this off the shelf, sit in a chair, and just wander with it through the real world, which is more amazing than anything you can make up. And for all those reasons, I think, the time of the encyclopedia is all around us. We just need to think of it in a slightly different way.
Now, having a physical encyclopedia might be a completely new experience to many people listening to the show. Have you got any tips on how to use it well so that we do maximise what we're getting out of it? Can you just briefly show us how to be a good fact finder?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you always want to... This is the other thing about non-fiction for children, which I think I'm so passionate about, is that the one thing it can do is it really can help us educate ourselves into our critical thinking skills. And, today we're saturated with news and information that's unchecked, that's got some kind of motive behind it or agenda, whether it's advertising or propaganda or whatever. And we need our young people to look skeptically at everything and come up with their own individual judgments, because that's really the only way of discerning truth. You have to chisel away at it. It isn't just a simple fact that something's true or false. Things that we think are true today may turn out to be false, and because new evidence will have emerged, or things that we think are false may turn out to be true. And the only way those things happen is through meticulous research and by having an open mind and being willing to look around the corner and see things differently. And I think that's what this book can do, but also that's the approach you need to have when you use this book, to your question, is who is the expert behind this page? Well, actually, we tell you their names and where they're from, and at the end of every chapter, there's an opportunity to meet the experts, and it tells you how they've spent their whole lives working out, the answers to why certain fish glow in the dark at the bottom of the sea, or looking at some of the most microscopic creatures in the world and what their life cycles are like, or whatever else it is. And then you can see where they're from, you can see what they've studied, and then there's a quiz at the back, so you can test out how much information you have absorbed from reading that chapter. I wouldn't say it's a book where you have to start at the beginning and go to the end, although you can if you want, because I've written an introduction to each chapter that gives it a narrative arc. You can go in and find out what you're interested in. Sometimes it's difficult for children to know what they're interested in. Maybe that's one of the known unknowns that we can address with this book. And just go for a wander like you're going into a whole new theme park. Imagine arriving at Disney World or something. Do you turn left or right? Do you go forwards or backwards? Do you go to Adventureland, or do you go to Fantasyland or whatever? You want to go to all of these places. But what are you really interested in? What rides do you really most enjoy? What gives you the biggest thrill? At the age of 9 or 10, you don't really know. But what this can do is it can help you on this journey of discovery, because there are certain spreads, certain experts, certain parts of history, certain parts of science that will resonate with you in a way that you didn't expect or you didn't know. And that can help guide you as to what difference you can make in the future to planet life and people.
Amazing. It's Britannica's all-new children's encyclopedia. Christopher, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about it. Now, this week's Dangerous Dan is something that you will not believe we haven't spoken about before. It's all about the largest snake in the world, the green anaconda. Seriously, how have we not spoken about this? It's the largest snake on the planet. You would have thought this was Dangerous Dan number 1. Anyway, you'll find the green anaconda in South America. It's a member of the boa family. They're dark green with some glorious purples, dark blues and lighter yellows across their scales. Glorious, come on, you need to be nice to a snake. Also, they can weigh more than 550 pounds. They can grow longer than 29 feet, which is more than a bus. And they're thick too. They live in, not stupid, no, they're thick, they're wide. You don't want to be mean to a snake. They're wide. They live in swamps and marshes around the Amazon. And when they do that, their nose and their eyes, they're right at the top of their head, which means they can lie underwater, disguised a little bit, and mostly submerged until prey wanders by. Now, because they're so huge, they need to eat some really big stuff. They feast on pigs and deer and turtles and caimans and birds and sometimes even big cats like jaguars. They wrap their thick muscular bodies around the prey until the animal slowly withers away and dies. And then they stretch their jaw out and they swallow the prey whole. And then it just sits in there. It sits inside them. You can normally see it inside their belly from the outside. It sits there while they digest it. And because their meals are so big and they're so huge, it takes them ages to digest the food. And then it means they can go weeks and sometimes months without eating again. Let's talk about some more dangerous beasts now. We're headed back in time to the age of the dinosaurs.
Age of the Dinosaur with Dinosaur Action Magazine, the #1 mag for dino fans.
Imagine going back in time, not 100 years or 1,000 years, but millions of years. To the age of the dinosaur. The Jurassic period was home to thousands of different dinosaurs, big and small. One easy way to learn about them is to split them into 2 groups, the meat-eaters or carnivores and the plant-eaters or herbivores. Of course, some dinosaurs are both. Look out! Here comes a well-known carnivore, the Megalosaurus.
He's getting very close, and he's enormous.
Megalosaurus was a terrifying predator that was almost 9 meters long. That's twice as high as a double-decker bus. He had powerful jaws and sharp teeth, perfect for ripping through his prey's thick skins and swallowing huge chunks of flesh. His teeth were serrated. That means zigzag-shaped along the edge, like a saw, and could slice through flesh easily. Standing on his hind legs, with short forearms and a huge head, he looked quite like Tyrannosaurus. Although since T-Rex wasn't to appear for many millions of years, they would never have met. As well as razor-sharp teeth and strong jaws, predators have large eyes for finding their prey. We can tell this in dinosaur fossils from the shape of the bones in the skull, which reveal the size of the eyes. The eyes would have faced slightly forward, like in a bird of prey. This allowed them to judge distances accurately, helping with hunting.
Ugh, what's that horrible smell?
Another sign of a meat-eater is found in their brains, whose impressions are left deep in the skull. The part of the brain involved in smelling was very large in carnivores. Many meat-eating dinosaurs would eat dead animals as well as live ones, so sniffing out rotting carcasses, sometimes as much as a kilometre away, was important.
Watch out, there's some giant feet heading this way.
You might think the herbivores sound a bit less scary, but they were some of the hugest creatures that ever lived. Diplodocus is one of the best-known herbivores, a huge sauropod who stood a whopping 26 meters long with a long neck, perfect for reaching leaves at the top of tall trees. Lots of herbivores had many rows of teeth, sometimes pencil-shaped to rake the vegetation. Other times rounder or blunt like spoons to rip leaves from the branches. Teeth were constantly replaced as they broke or wore down, which would have happened a lot. To get enough vegetation to keep their huge bodies going, those teeth would have been busy. Whilst broad-snouted sauropods wouldn't have been picky eaters, those dinosaurs with narrower mouths could pick particular plants, and so may have had a favourite. Others, like the Stegosaurus, had horny beaks that could slice through the toughest vegetation.
Paleontology, pick.
How can paleontologists be so sure about what dinosaurs ate? Well as the shape of their skeletons, size of stomach cavities and the type of teeth, there's another way. Because what goes in must come out. That's right, fossil poo. Called a coprolite, it can help scientists understand the relationships between animals and plants. Seeds, bones, fish scales or vegetation can be identified and give us an accurate picture of what a dinosaur liked to eat.
Age of the Dinosaur with Dinosaur Action Magazine, the #1 mag for dino fans.
Let's get this week's Science in the News. Scientists say that a 2-million-year-old skull found in South Africa can throw more light on human evolution. Now, it's from a cousin species to Homo erectus, who are ancestors of modern-day humans, and it's really rare to find an almost complete skull, so scientists are hoping that it shows why the species died out, while others around at the same time lived on and became what we are today. Also, this year's Atlantic hurricane season has broken the storm record. Storm Theta is in the northeast Atlantic, is the 29th storm of storm season. Another one is forming in the Caribbean as well, which could raise that number even more. And scientists think it's been a particularly active year because of quite warm sea temperatures. And finally, the NASA probe OSIRIS-REx, it's on its way to head back to Earth. Brilliant news. We spoke about the fact that it had done what it went there for a few weeks ago, but there was a little bit of a problem. It collected rock from an asteroid millions of kilometres away, and scientists were worried that a rock wedged open a door and maybe other rocks, the ones that it travelled so far to collect, would spill out. But it's safely sealed now, and it's heading back home, and it will touch down, hopefully, in September 2023. And that is it for this week's Fun Kids Science Weekly. If you've got something sciencey that you want answered on the show, you need to leave it as a review for me over on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you can, send me all of your good vibes. Hopefully we'll win next year's greatest podcast in the history of the universe. While you're on Apple Podcasts, by the way, it's one of the best places that you can hear all of our science podcast series. We've got loads on there. Got them on Google, Spotify, wherever you listen to your shows. They're on the free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com as well. And Fun Kids are a children's radio station from the UK. You can hear us all over the country on your DAB digital radio, on that free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com.